Coming to you live from the Business RadioX studio, it's Franchise Marketing Radio. Elevate your franchise with Franchise Now. We tell your brand's story on our radio podcast and boost it with powerful content marketing strategies. From blogs and videos to infographics and more, we enhance your brand's SEO and online visibility. Let Franchise Now help your franchise stand out in a crowded market. Visit us today and learn more to start your journey for greater visibility and success. And now, here's your host.
Welcome back, everybody, to Franchise Marketing Radio, where we spotlight the strategies, innovations, and stories driving success in franchising. I'm your host, Rob Ganley, and today, like every interview, I'm excited to dive in with Scott Sutton. He is the Chief Development Officer at Empower Brands, and he'll fill us in. But there are many concepts, but they are I won't say dominating, but they are leading the home services sector. So they have many brands. We're going to dive into that together. But Scott has over 25 years of leadership in franchise development, strategy, and growth. He's uniquely positioned to share. Empower Brands is creating synergies across its portfolio. And we'll really dive into that concept of the platform company, which I think is super cool. Welcome to the show, Scott. It's great to have you.
Hey, Rob, you can say dominating, by the way. That's absolutely A-okay. And I'm excited to be here. Always love chatting with you. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, I didn't want to put too much pressure on you, but you ought to be. So you ought to be. Anyway, no, it's all good. But we're going to dive into that, because I think that's an important point. And I think, it isn't all about obviously making money, right? It's about doing the right thing and building the right kinds of companies and serving the customers well. And I know you guys think about that constantly, and there's a reason behind a platform concept, and it is to improve those things. We'll dive into those synergies as we go. But tell me a little bit about your journey, Scott. I know you've been in the industry a while. You have also a background in sales and running sales organizations. And so tell us a little bit about the journey and the transformation into franchising. And then I know you've been in this capacity for a couple of years. So maybe just a little bit of where you're headed with your current position.
I always love telling the story. And I think it's fascinating for me because, let's face it, a lot of folks that are out working in the business of franchising, it's not as if many of us were able to go to college or into a trade organization and really learn about franchising. You learn about franchising organically. And so for me, as a student at the University of Oklahoma, I had an opportunity to intern over the summer for a fast food franchisor. That was my entree into franchising. That's how I became more aware of what the business model was of franchising. And more importantly, what was the benefit to the community, the consumer, the employee, the vendor, the franchisee, and the franchisor. It's this really interesting ecosystem of value that's very relational, right? It's ultimately an opportunity for folks to grow their destiny, their lives, by using a system that is developed and geared toward helping those folks succeed. And so that was really the starting point for me. I moved from there right after college into an opportunity to help in the petroleum business, help create a brand and help it grow. I've been in sales, mergers and acquisitions, and related general management capacities over my career. And mind you, I am dating myself, Rob, but for the most part, since 1994, coming out of college, I've spent most of my career directly in franchise development or associated M&A functions inside the space. I've been with Empower for 2 years, and I will tell you that as an organization, the ability to bring to the organization the experience, the skills that I was able to develop over my career married incredibly well with what Empower has as its core belief and culture, which is to champion the success of franchisees. A lot of companies talk about their focus on the franchisee first mentality. For me, really looking hard at the Empower portfolio and its leadership, yes, Empower Brands is a private equity-backed portfolio organization of franchise companies. Where we've been different and continue to differentiate is our leadership. Our CEO, Scott Sutton, his first role out of college, came out of the University of Kansas and decided, what? I'm going to own my own business. And those businesses are going to be franchise locations. So he became a franchisee. His wife, Erin, who's on our team today and helping in franchise development, she was a franchisee. 3 other leaders of our team have been former franchise owners. So Rob, we get it. We understand what it's like to be a franchise owner, what kind of support and training you need, how to run, grow, and scale your business. That is foundational. It's fundamental. And that culture is pulled through the entire organization. So that, to me, was the key differentiator in making a determination and a decision to step forward and become a part of this great organization. It's been an incredible, incredible opportunity for me. And ultimately, as we continue to grow, opportunities for our franchise owners that are a part of the system.
Well, and I think there's nothing lost in the name and power, right? And I like that you took the time. I think we're gonna unpack platform company and what exactly, what would be the driving purpose of one. And you kind of differentiated yourself a little there, which I appreciate. That, ultimately, even though you're well backed, right? You haven't lost the concept of empowerment. Franchising, right, is helping others get into business and building a network of independent, strong owners, right? And that idea is hard to get to if you haven't done it. Like, it's one thing to be an amazing financial wizard or investor or even an entrepreneur. Franchising is a bit different. It is just one of the best growth models that exist, but it also requires an understanding of the relationship between the franchisor and the franchisee. And so the fact that you now have the platform company, but kept that intact because of your ownership or your leaders being ex-franchisors themselves and still franchisors, right, in a sense, but specifically running one brand. And so let's unpack, though, what a platform company is. Let's talk about the power of it. And maybe some of the reason why, your leaders have chosen to be a platform company. I think there was some thought behind that and why you joined it. Like, knowing what the franchise industry is about, you're like, I want to be a part of this thing. So help us unpack the power of the platform company and why empower the brand, empower everything. Just help us understand the synergy of that.
Yeah, it is. It's profoundly impactful at the franchisee level for sure. And then certainly at the consumer level. But our portfolio organization was really made up of 2 organizations, Lynx Franchising and Outdoor Living Brands, that came together several years ago and allowed for franchise owners and consumers to have an opportunity to be served by a leader on the commercial side of the services business, as well as leaders on the residential services side of the business. So there was this strategy. Let's talk first about the brand orientation, the services that make up the portfolio. There is synergy, meaning we're providing more relevant and consistent opportunities for support and to solve problems at the consumer level, as well as to enhance their lives. And all of the brands in the portfolio support that. They have an opportunity to address that. And there's cross-selling opportunities that exist as a result. Fundamentally, I think about when we have our Empower Days, we bring all of our candidates that are interested in business ownership to Richmond, Virginia once a month. Folks call it Confirmation Day or Decision Day or Discovery Day. We call it Empower Day. When we bring them together, one of the things that we talk about is the reality that we are an organization. Let's take Bumble Roofing, for example. That's an incubation brand, right? Incubation, new to industry. It's a year old, but it's sitting in a portfolio whose oldest brand was founded in 1980 and began franchising in 1985. We have over 680 franchise owners operating in over 1,500 territories across the globe. We've been able to build a skill set and a level of expertise that benefits that incubation brand. We've done it before. We will do it again. And we've learned a lot along the way, Rob. We've made mistakes, right? I think every organization that comes out of the ground, that goes about creating something innovative and different, is going to make mistakes. When we incubated Mosquito Squad, we started a category. When we implemented the opportunity to scale a company called Conserva Irrigation, there was no other irrigation franchise in the space. those were incubation related opportunities that we were able to realize because of the expertise and experience of the platform. And so when we think about what is the value that a platform brings, first and foremost, it brings that experience, that expertise. The other thing that I'll say, Rob, that's really key, and there's so much to unpack with for platform organizations.
Right.
But when you think about a platform company, fundamentally, I think about the best practices sharing in two different funnels, right? There is a best practices funnel that's associated with the internal view. For example, our marketing team is a shared services organization that is able to provide marketing guidance and playbooks and expertise and KPIs to all of our brands and franchise owners. But they're also recognizing certain best practices and things that are working in one brand that may not have been deployed in another. So they take that collaboration and are able to say, hey, this is a program, this is an approach that's working in one brand. Let's cascade it to another two or three or all of them. The reverse is also true, right? If there is a deployment or a project or a program that's not working, you start to help that inform what your strategy might be in other brands. So that internal best practices and knowledge sharing is key. But let's not forget, externally, when you have franchise owners that are operating, for example, in a market like Atlanta, Georgia, you've got brands and multiple brands operating in Atlanta, multiple franchise owners that create, I mean, for lack of a better term, a higher value peer networking group from which there's the ability to gain knowledge, experience about how to hire, how to pay, how to operate, how to market, how to be evangelists in your territories, and to build relationships and friends along the way. So you have that external best practices sharing of what's working in my brand or in general in the market where I'm operating based on the expertise of all the other franchise owners in that same marketplace throughout the portfolio. So best practices is and continues to be just a huge win for a platform organization that's structured the right way.
Right. And it's right. Structured the right way, because ultimately it's the flow of communication. Well, it starts with a culture. Again, empower is a great word, right? I mean, just saying the brand every day and seeing the word every day would constantly keep you focused on that. Like, how am I empowering this person? How am I empowering my colleague, my boss, my people, my team, whatever, right? But ultimately, so you had said, a couple different ways that you stimulate that communication. Just wondering, because you guys do have a great view of home services, is there one or two marketing ideas that you just say, yep, that thing works in every, that's just, we got to have that, right? I mean, is there one thing that almost every brand focuses on and is key, or one or two things that you would share, like marketing, whether it's a service you use or it's just a thing that you teach? What is there one thing that one or two things that is common?
Yeah, there's strategy and there's tactics. I like to back up from that and say the most important thing that we teach and that we focus on when educating our franchise owners is mindset, and recognizing that you will hear marketers talk a lot about digital. You'll hear marketers talk a lot about shoe leather marketing, right? Getting out the guerrilla type tactics, the offline tactics that are so incredibly important. But again, take the step back, and from a mindset perspective, Rob, at the end of the day, we are a sales and marketing organization that brings to consumers and clients solutions to problems and opportunities for enhancement in their lives, right? That's who we are as a company. Now, that solution or problem solving ability might come through caring for a client in a time of need because they had a tree limb fall on their roof. Bumble Roofing is going to be able to take care of that issue, solve that problem, do it in a respectful, transparent, and caring way. Ultimately, sales and marketing is the organization that we are in delivering those services, those products to our clients. The mindset is this, and when we think about what are we really pushing forward at a high level across all brands from a marketing perspective, it's being the evangelist of the brand in the territory and market where you operate, right? It's making sure that you're building relationships with your current client base, your future client base, and all of the connectors that can help share with their client base and with the community at large the value proposition that our brands bring to the table. I'm reminded of great franchise owners that build strong relationships with the real estate community and are able to educate the real estate community about what Canopy Lawn Care can do to increase the value and presentation of a particular property through a healthy lawn. Those kinds of relational, focused, evangelistic type strategies, Rob, they're just foundational to where each franchise owner has to start, right? Everything gets built on top of that. So being the evangelist, owning the expert position in your territory for the brand that you operate is foundationally key in all of our brands.
Right. I think, that is a tremendous answer, because that is, without that, I don't know that things work well at all. Right. Like, it would be hard. It would be hard. So like anything you deploy, any kind of marketing, any kind of tactic, just wouldn't have the same impact if there's not a synergistic commitment to that area. And so like we're talking about, whether it's B2B partners, right? Other guys that are in your industry or related, like you said, real estate, right? So there's really probably dozens of types of business owners that they can partner with in any of these brands. And then of course there's organizations that serve families, right? And so again, it's about solving problems for families, right? So you're right. It's still organic, no matter how fancy tech gets, or we are using our screens and on our screens a lot. And no doubt you have to own a presence and be credible on those channels as best you can. But in things like home services or in the retail or restaurant space, it is so much about creating relationships. And like you said,
no doubt.
What did you say? The brand expert, or the owning the expert position, the pole position of that, and being the connector too. Like if people know that's you, that also differentiates you. You could be the plumber that just came in and barely said anything, fixed something. That's great, all right. But also the plumber that knew the other guy and the 5 other guys and told you about it and then helped you. I mean, it's a differentiator, and I hear it over and over again when I interview guys.
I think Rena, right. It's so interesting, Rob, because I think about even survey of one, right? But my wife and I moved 2 years ago. We had been in a suburb for 18 years in greater Atlanta, and we moved closer to the city. And I'll never forget, we move into this home that we had built. It's a new home. Who was the first person that I went to and had a conversation with about, hey, who should I be thinking about for pest control, right? Who should I be thinking about for my lawn care? And that point of rep. Now, I got great guidance. I appreciated that. Of course, I went and did some research online and looked at Google reviews and made sure that I was having conversations with folks that I thought were reputable and would do a great job. But the first place I started was someone that I trusted, word of mouth, having the conversation in the community with folks that had been there for an extended period of time. That's where it started. I think for a lot of people, that's also where it begins, particularly with folks that are new to a community or otherwise trying to understand who are the right providers. Digitally, very, very important. Do not misunderstand the importance of the digital ability to generate leads and to gain credibility, but you can't forget about what's right in front of you, which is community, right? Really, really important.
I think, and again, we talked earlier before we got online here or during the show, we were talking about AI and the way that will transform things. I think that, ultimately relationships will not go away. In fact, I think we'll all have more time for them. I think our businesses will evolve into a place where that will be more important. So we went through a phase where we had to be always learning, always doing things, trying to keep up, work harder. And I think all of us feel it. All of us feel fatigued from being stretched and being beyond everything that that's being thrown at us. So, but I feel is happening is the impact of relationships has a lot of weight, and everything else is what's the differentiator? Well, the differentiator is I got a referral from someone I trust that is going to solve a problem. I could care less about the 100 features against the other guy's 100 features. I want you to solve my problem, and I got it from someone I trust. There's your thing. You could have 50 more features. It doesn't matter. assuming it's normal numbers. And yeah, you might do a quick check. Is it lining up? But that is such a powerful place to be getting that flow of referrals and to be connected with people. And I think that's the key. I mean, I've seen it over and over again in brands. With everything else is important, but you got that foundation, you will make it all work.
And Rob, the funny part about that, you're right on. I think the other thing to think about is the reverse is true. And that is, you can look at and compare a number of features and benefits, right? And you may have the opportunity to look at a website or gain access to a brochure, and everything's very slick and it's beautiful and it's well presented. If there's no execution, and if the delivery of that service, if the delivery of that need falls short, you're not going to refer. You're not going to feel good about giving a return visit or using that particular service provider in the future. So I think there's certainly a balance, but to your point, absolutely, it does come down to execution. And we talk about customer acquisition and execution and production all day long. But at the end of the day, as you start to gain penetration in the market and build credibility, you're able to rely more on what you've done compared to what you say you're going to do. And that's a big, big implication and important item for folks to think about as they're either growing their business or they're starting their business in a particular territory.
Yeah, exactly. No doubt. So like when we're thinking about, we were talking a little earlier about the power of the synergy of your centralized teams being able to have this awareness of 14 different models that are synergistic and serving particular audience, and being able to, spot things, right? Like, we're doing this over here at brand A, and wouldn't it benefit these brands over here? And so how do you go through, like, tell me a little bit about the process of how is there a process for, okay, we spotted something, we now want to take it and pilot it somewhere else, like, and communicate this. And then obviously you start maybe in one location and you roll it out or in some way. But how do you do it systematically? I know you must, because you got all these brands, all these opinions, everything going on. So like when you do spot something, I'm sure you want to say, okay, let's first make sure this is really impactful. Secondly, let's make sure there's a pathway before we take and start talking to everybody about it. Like, let's make sure we're pretty darn sure, but we probably want to pilot it still, right? Like, yeah. So it's not just throw it, like flip a switch one day. Like, how do you do that? How do you, and then I don't know if it's two questions or one, but like with AI, we've talked about it earlier and you were talking about some of your innovation around that, but what is that process of testing, piloting, and rolling out? Like, how do you do it well? How do you do it responsibly?
Yeah. I will tell you, we call it ITM, innovation to market, and it is a cornerstone of how we think about future organic growth over time. At the end of the day, a lot of the ideation, quite frankly, comes from our franchisee community. Our franchisees are active in looking at and assessing what the customer need or opportunity might be. A couple of great examples. You think about the Conserva irrigation model. Rush Junt, Heather Todd, their teams have been able to really address a key need of consumers that is ancillary or adjacent to irrigation, which is drainage. The drainage needs to clear standing water from homes and yards and property, not just on the residential side, but also on the commercial side, created an opportunity for revenue growth. Number one, that's great. I mean, we all are focused on revenue growth, but that revenue growth is really on the back of consumer and corporate need, right? The need to remove and solve a problem. So that was identified by franchise owners, by our corporate team members. It was looked at as an opportunity to assess, what do we think the market looks like for drainage, investigating the drainage market, understanding how to operationalize that, piloting the production of drainage work, and then leaning into how do we market, acquire, serve, and produce, right? Those are all steps in a process of innovation to market. Those are stage gates, Rob. Not every innovation is going to make it through those stage gates downstream. Outdoor lighting perspectives is another great example. They bridged into holiday lighting. And now they have gemstone permanent roof line lighting that has become a huge hit for businesses. Those are all innovation to market examples where they've moved through all of the stage gates and been commercialized, but recognize there is a process. I think there can be a rush to do uninformed innovation without properly vetting, testing, and really digging your hands into what is the opportunity and the best way to commercialize it. So we're not done ideating. We know there's adjacencies in all of our businesses. Roofing is a great example, moving into the gutter business. Insulation is a great example, right, with being able to move into adjacent services. So those opportunities will continue to be there to ideate and to try and test. That will ultimately bring more value to the consumer, number one, and then number two, to the franchise owner. You know, one of the things we talk about with AI, right, is recognizing that across the current breadth of services that we offer, for example, to homeowners, how do we use AI to inform and serve up to the client information about what they need to be looking out for before they are even aware of what they need to be looking out for, whether it is understanding that their home, there's data around how old is their home, accessing those data, extrapolating life cycles of certain products. You're able to start to understand how to serve up, okay, your windows are becoming aged based on the age of your home. Your roof is 15 years old. These are kinds of things that you need to be thinking about. We can serve those up through AI, right? Helping us understand what those intervals look like. AI is just the tip of the iceberg relative to AI and helping us be a differentiator, and more importantly, becoming more efficient in the way that we serve our clients downstream.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, I was laughing with part of your response because about the we might run out a little too fast and try to do something real quick, I'm thinking a bunch of entrepreneurs. It's like, yeah, ready, fire, aim, and you're right. I mean, that's the point, right? Like franchising is the way to do things, right? At every layer of a business, right? That's the objective, right? No one's perfect, but you're not ignoring like, oh, let's just throw that out there and see what happens. No, there's actually a process to determine the timing, the velocity, how we roll it out. So anyway, I just thought it was funny because you also have to herd the cats. You gotta be good enough leaders to herd the cats.
Yeah, and look, I was having this conversation last week with recognizing that every new passionate franchise owner that comes into a brand, they are hungry, they are focused, they've got energy, they're ready to hit the ground running. And part of that process is coming up with ideas and really recognizing, hey, have we ever thought about this? This should be easy if. And so my guidance is always, whether you're picking up a remarkable tablet or the notes feature in your iPhone or a legal tablet, whatever it might be with a pen, remember those days? Write down every suggestion, everything that doesn't make sense, every innovation opportunity that you can see as you launch the business. Keep that list running and hold on to it for a year. And then when you lap your first year of operations, take out that tablet and start reading through the items and notes that you took. And what you'll find is kind of start scratching through stuff. That doesn't make sense. I don't know what I was thinking when I thought we could do that. Okay, now I get this component. I don't have a question on that anymore. As franchise owners gain experience in their brand, things start to make more sense. And from an ideation perspective, it provides more color as to what would, from a business perspective, a client adoption perspective and a revenue perspective, what makes sense. We can't serve up everything to everyone, but I think understanding where are the opportunities and the gaps, that's part of the brilliance of having this network of franchise owners that live on passion and are focused on success. That's going to continue to be a big piece of the fuel that helps drive innovation over time.
That's awesome. And where did you buy that? Like, let's just buy 100 opinions from really talented people that know our business really well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about like think about some of the networking groups that you pay to be into in a local market, right? You have to pay a monthly fee. And in franchising, whether it's Empower Brands or any other portfolio or single brand organization, you get the benefit of so much experience and expertise, both from a brand perspective, category perspective, and just from a business ownership perspective, strategy, tactics. Those are things that I think inherently provide significant value to the franchise owner and to the system. It's just a really neat thing.
Totally cool. It's that's why we talk about. That's why I sit here talking about it, because it is cool to talk about.
No
it
doubt.
Really is, because people don't understand the impact. They don't I feel like everybody knows what franchising is in terms of a franchise. Like it's a business that has a lot of them. But they, the elegance of the model and the idea behind it is so multifaceted. It's really cool.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Just from a business and then psychologically, it's just, to me, it's one of the best ways to achieve business success. Really hard to do it on your own. Really hard. You have to be wired a certain way and have the right influences and the right people around you. And I don't know if you can always make that work, right? I mean, a franchise forces it, makes it around that. You don't know. Like you said, it's kind of like you discovered as you learn the reason for the structure and the success of it, but tremendous. So I want to make sure we leave the audience with something that maybe is easy for you to share, something that hit you in the heart, right? That you feel like this platform company, it's either a success story or maybe a problem you overcame with a franchisee or in a certain market, just something you're proud of and you're saying, yeah, man, we worked together on that. And that was anything you want to share, like a success story or how you overcame a challenge in a particular market. Probably a million
I'll
of them,
give you. Yeah, there are. And I'll give you two examples, something about which I'm very proud organizationally, right? I am proud to be a part of a company that is able to tell the story of Gary and Andrea Locke down in Southwest Florida. They were our Superior Fence and Rail franchise owner number one, right? Number one. Think about that, right? They put their trust, their faith in a brand that was new, that was young. It was not yet a part of a portfolio company like Empower. New folks trying to find their way in the market. And Gary and Andrea took a leap of faith and they partnered with the founders of Superior Fence and Rail. Superior became a part of the Empower portfolio. The founder of Superior stayed and is our brand president, the great Zach Payton. And Gary and Andrea found success, right? Worked their tails off, figured things out, understood that it was going to be difficult, recognized that customer acquisition and satisfaction in that space can be hard. It can be difficult. They figured it out. They just absolutely grew the business, continued to focus on the client, developed a reputation second to none, established Superior, and provided validation that the way that we were going to market was right by the client. About a month ago, Rob, they sold their business. They created value. They recognized that value. And you want to talk about emotion? You want to talk about satisfaction, heartfelt emotion and satisfaction. That's Gary and that's Andrea. And that is something when you see that goal achieved and realized over time, the way that they were able to do it, being the first franchise owner, it is impactful. It is just incredibly impactful. So that's recent. That's something that I'm very humbled to be able to share with you.
Yeah,
so thank you for asking that question.
You did, and just real quick, I wanted to chime in and just say to you real quick that, to me, that is the American dream. Like, so like being married 50 plus years and being happy, that's an amazing thing, right? But like you're starting a business and having a journey of growing it, running it successfully for a long time, and then closing out strong and giving it to someone you believe in, right? You don't want the brand keeps going. You got the franchise around you. To me, that cycle and what goes into that and the feeling of moving on, very emotional. And it is. It's why we start businesses, isn't it? Like that cycle to finish
it is. It's like their baby. I mean, it was. So seeing that transpire was really a just fundamentally an emotional and very humbling thing to experience. The other thing that I would share is we talk about culture, we talk about alignment of personalities, of focus and goals, expectations. We've got a great new brand in the portfolio, Bumble Roofing. Bumble Roofing was started by a guy named David Baton. David started his business in the LA area in California, non-franchised enterprise. We were introduced to David. We had an opportunity to do a deal with David, incubate and launch a franchise concept of Bumble Roofing and start to scale that. We had an incredible first 12 months. In fact, it's just 13 months now that we launched Bumble Roofing, 22 franchise owners operating in about 65 territories. Our development director, Mark Behrens, has done an incredible job working with passionate new franchise owners. David, before we lined ourselves up and launched, David Baton, when I asked him, what's your goal? Ultimately, why are you doing this? You've got a great business in Los Angeles. You're trying to take over the world, trying to generate an incredible amount of profitability and wealth. What's the reason? He said, Scott, I've built a brand that cares for the customer the right way, and I want it to be a household name. That was his aspiration. And, we were having this conversation, and I took a deep breath and just kind of exhaled and said, he's the right guy. And this is the right brand for Empower. Like, let's freaking go. And here we are.
It's like the right interview. He interviewed the interview question perfectly. Like that.
Man, he nailed it. I don't need to, I want this to be a household name. That's my goal, because then he'll know every household in America has access to a brand that paves the way for caring for the client the right way. And he's off to a great start.
Tremendous. And I love it because life is about serving others, right? I think ultimately you got to serve yourself, right, to do well, but you have to serve others. And when we're in that mode, doing well, doing our best work, that is the fulfillment. Money will take care of itself. I mean, you can only have so much money to do something with individually. So it is about serving others. And if you do reach that success that some of your colleagues are at, and then you have more options to serve others, right? That's the way I look at it. So you just have more resource to do. And that's maybe it. Like, why stop? Like, I want to make it bigger. We're serving people. Let's make it a household name. And I just love that. Yeah, that's what it really will drive you through, right? It isn't the financial payoff. It is a little bit, but it's that purpose underneath that I know drives you through the tough times. So
he'll be in some convertible one day. Like, he'll have the top down. He'll be driving down US 1 Pacific Coast Highway, and nice yellow Bumble Roofing pickup truck's going to drive by him, and he's going to smile, and he's going to say, I created something. And that's what,
just interesting.
It's unbelievable.
That's weird. I never thought of that. It's a tremendous analogy you just shared. Like the idea that if you're that person, like Bill Gates, like he uses his own stuff every day. Like, he's probably forgot about it by now. But it must have been kind of surreal when you see something you created that just comes out of the blue in the world somewhere, like randomly.
Pretty cool.
And no one knows that you have anything to do with it, right? That's kind of cool.
Exactly right.
But anyway, so vision for the future. I just wanted to wrap this up. Thank you so much for your time. You've been on with me for a while, so it's tremendous. But vision for the future, just an idea of, where do you take this beautiful Empower brand? Is there sort of, how do you see it 5 years out? What in your mind, in your heart, what is your goal as a leader of the brand? What do you like to see happen?
Yeah, I mean, there's really two fundamental things. The first is scaling the culture. I mean, the way that we scale the culture, first and foremost, is by bringing in the right kinds of franchisees. We do not have a sales process. We have a franchisee selection process. And a big piece of that, Rob, is making sure that there is cultural alignment. So we want to scale the culture. That also means scaling our internal team by bringing in the right kind of expertise. That's important, but also doing it in a way that we're bringing the right kind of individuals that are great cultural maps, or that map well to culturally to who we are, and have servant leadership. That's really important. So scaling the culture is incredibly important. The second piece, of course, is scaling the size of the organization by adding competencies and brands and services that are adjacent to and expand upon what we bring as value propositions to the client today. We have 10 brands in the portfolio today. I will tell you that in 3 to 5 and 10 years down the road, we will have more brands that bring to consumers more world-class, relevant products and services to help them live better lives. That'll happen over time. In the meantime, we're staying focused on making sure that each brand is a leader in their category, and it's run by passionate brand leaders and franchise owners that are great cultural fits to what we're doing out in the marketplace. That's the goal.
Amazing. I love the servant leadership. You phrase that in there, and it's obvious in talking to you, and I've talked to other leaders in your platform company, and many franchise brands, hold that sort of idea. And again, it's natural. What did we say earlier? When you have a network of really strong people, and we got to work together, you got to have some leaders in there too. How do you lead leaders? But it is a servant leader model, and I think that's what makes it work. You can be both. When you need to lead, or you could show someone else how to lead, or let them lead, right? And give them the tools to lead. But ultimately, I love that you care about that. And I love that you care about all your customers. Think about the impact of all the locations you have, all the franchisees and all their customers. I don't know how many people that is, but it's a lot of people you're impacting. So I think
it's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. And two of our brands, predominantly First Team Restoration and Bubble Roofing, are two examples of brands that provide services to homeowners at times when they are struggling, when their stress levels are very, very high. They've got a major issue with a roof, or they've had an event that requires a restoration level of services. So, that's the time to care for people, to provide to them the right things at the right times, not to take advantage. And unfortunately, there are a lot of folks in the markets that do that. We recognize that this is about caring for people. That's who we are. That's who we will endeavor to be every day of the week, every week. So that's the goal now and into the future.
And I would just chime in that point about, we care about people. In order to have to run a world-class business, right? The details,
no doubt about it,
of that, you know what I mean? Like the output, the reason why the experience is good for the client or customer is because of all the work you guys do all the time and never stop. And it's because all the independence, I guess what triggered it was when you're independently running a business, you really are sort of be in a reactive mode, and it's very hard to do the right thing. It's not that you even know you're doing the wrong thing sometimes, right? You just don't have the knowledge. You don't have the systems, the processes, the people, right? Imagine all the things that can go wrong for the client if you don't handle all that, right? So anyway, that is why we have franchising. That's why it's a great opportunity in the world. God bless America. But I appreciate you being on the show. Before we do completely let you go, can you share the best to get a hold of, the whole network? I don't know. There's obviously a lot of brands there. Do they start with your team, or what would you recommend? How do they reach out if they're interested?
Yeah, it's great. We would love to hear it. Head over to empowerfranchising.com. Check out the website. We'd love to connect with you. We have a presence on LinkedIn, on Instagram. Make sure that you're doing that investigation. When you're ready, give us a call, send us an email, fill out that information form. We'll be sure to provide the education to make sure that you can map what's important to you to a brand that makes sense for how you want to build and scale your future. So check us out on empowerfranchising.com. Looking forward to a great year, Rob.
Yeah, tremendous. And I got to say to anyone listening, what an amazing opportunity it would be. You have 12, is it 12 brands? Did I get that right?
10 brands in the portfolio today. Yep.
10. Okay. How much knowledge transfer is that? So anyone who's interested in franchising, good place to start. If you want to learn some more.
It's big.
Yeah.
That's right.
I appreciate you. Thanks again, Scott, for being here. I definitely hope that we connect again. We'll keep telling stories about innovation, serving clients, and how we're doing that, which I know that's going to evolve with AI. We talked about that. So I'd love to talk to you again. Thanks for being here.
Let's keep it going. Rob, thank you so much for having me, man. This has been a pleasure.
Got it.